Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're back in the Porsche Cup car for another track guide, this time at Brands Hatch. This track is very interesting due to the elevation changes and therefore can be difficult with the lack of driving aids in this car. This lap was done with a fixed setup, a track temp of 23 degrees, air temp of 18 and the track usage was 100%. For those who are new here, I usually go through the fast lap first, then do the guided lap, where I'll go through all my braking markers and references to help you go faster. If you're only interested in the guided lap, I'll leave timestamps in the description so you can skip to the specific part you want. Let's get into it. But before we start, I'd really appreciate it if you all subscribe to my channel and like the video. Thank you! For turn 1, I brake around a car's length before the 100 board and gradually turn in just after the 50 board. The braking here is tricky as you have to brake and turn at the same time on entry. My peak brake pressure is around 75%, and then as I begin to turn in I drop it down to 30% to avoid locking up. On the entry I stay as far left as possible to open up the corner and take a late apex. I get back on throttle just before the inside curve to carry good speed onto the exit. I use 4th gear here, however you can also use 3rd gear if you're struggling to find rotation. I avoid the inside curves, it can unsettle the car as you begin to accelerate, and on the exit you get 1x if you use too much of the gravel on the left. For the hairpin I brake at the end of the gravel on the left. My peak brake pressure is 80% and I trial brake all the way to the apex. I take a double apex here to get good traction out of the corner. I use 2nd gear initially and then shift down to 1st for some extra rotation mid-corner. I begin to come back on throttle when I see the marshal post on the exit, and you can use the AstroTurf on the left. However, it does have less grip than the tarmac, so make sure you account for it if you use it. You can also shift up to 2nd gear earlier to get better traction out of here. For this left-hander I brake at the 50 board and use 3rd gear. My peak brake pressure is just above 60% and I trial brake until just before the curb. The car tends to understeer a lot here, so trial braking really makes a difference. On the entry there is a small patch of AstroTurf that you can use to open up the corner. I get a late apex and come back on throttle just before the inside curb. And on the exit you can use all of the AstroTurf out here, however you will get a 1x if you touch any of the grass. Here I brake at the 50 board and use 3rd gear. On the entry I stay wide and take a very late apex to get a good exit onto the back straight. I turn in at the start of the curb on the right and again trial brake very far into the corner to keep the weight on the front of the car. I aim to apex just after the kink in the inside curb and avoid it to get a good traction. I gradually come back on throttle just before the apex, and you can use all of the red and white curb on the exit. For the fast right-hander I brake just after the 100 board. My peak brake pressure is just above 75% and I trial off very quickly so I can turn in without locking up. I use 4th gear and turn in just after the 50 board. You can get back on throttle a lot earlier than you would think here. I come back on when I reach the inside curb. It's important to not turn in too early here as you will understeer wide and lose lots of time. On the exit you can use all of the red and white curb, and also some of the grass without getting a 1x, although the grass can be inconsistent sometimes. This next corner can be difficult to judge as the exit is blind. I brake around halfway between the 50 and 100 boards. I shift down to third gear as fast as the car will allow me to get some extra rotation, and I turn in at the 50 board. You can cut the inside curb, or if you get a 1x if one of your wheels is no longer touching the red and white part of the curb. I take an early apex as there's lots of space on the exit. I get back on throttle gradually at the inside curb to avoid spinning the car, and you can use all of the AstroTurf on the exit without getting a 1x. This, in my opinion, is the most difficult corner on the circuit. I brake at the green and white striped part of the barrier on the right here and use 4th gear. I turn in just after the 50 board and you can cut all of the inside curb. I trail brake to get the front turned in, then get back on throttle just after the curb. It's very important to be smooth with your steering inputs on entry, as you're going over a crest, which means you'll have less grip, so the more you turn, when the track flattens out again, the car will understeer onto the grass. For this left-hander, I brake just before the 50 board and use 3rd gear. My peak brake pressure is 75% and you can use all of the inside curb. I aim for a mid-apex and I get back on throttle gradually at the start of the curb. On the exit, the track limits is the red and white curb. For the final corner, I brake just after the 100 board. My peak brake pressure is 90% before I trail off as I turn in. I turn in at the tarmac on the left to get a late apex. This allows me to get back on throttle earlier and have a better exit onto the start-finish straight. On the apex there is a crest, which makes the rear go light under acceleration, so it's very easy to spin here on cold tyres. The simple fix to this is to just be more smooth with the throttle application. On the exit you want to run the car all the way to the grass before taking a short line to the finish. So that was a lap of Brands Hatch. If you found this guide helpful, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. You can also now become a channel member if you so wish. And I'll leave you with the third person lap to the end of the video.